Welcome back to Black Women North of 50. I'm Wynn Helms, your host and truth teller and change seeker, and I'm glad to have you here. I'm on a quest to find meaning in my podcast beyond the fact that it's for Black women over 50. It's missing something, and I think part of what's missing is the Wynn-ness of it, and it's so odd to be talking about myself and sharing things because as a psychotherapist, as a 20th century psychotherapist, we're taught you don't disclose about yourself unless it's really important and has some kind of a value to whatever your client is going through. At any rate, I'm trying to find a way into podcasting that is authentic and, well, I'm not good at this yet. I'm getting there. Okay, so that said, one of the things that I don't talk about very much is spirituality. And it's such a private thing that is so important with other people and with community, which is kind of a paradox. And my journey, it may be like others, that I'm going to share that with you because it's a part of who I am and part of what I want to bring to this podcast. Okay. I grew up in a family that religion wasn't a part of our lives, really. I remember my father saying to my mother, I want the girls to go to church. And I remember my mother saying, I don't even remember what she said, but I saw her face. It was like, no, that's not, no. And I was really curious about that. I probably would have been a better singer than I am because I really would have tried to get into a choir. Anyway, I was curious about it. And at the same time, not curious enough to do anything on my own until I entered the 7th grade, I believe, 8th, one of them. And I had a friend who was fundamentalist Christian. She didn't cut her hair. She didn't wear pants. She was dresses, very plain, no jewelry, very, very fundamentalist. And I thought that was fascinating. And, during our, what did they call those things? Study hall. We would sit in the, I think it was like the dining room or somewhere. And she would talk about the Bible and tell me all these things that she learned and lived with and all that. And I was fascinated by all of that. To the point where I would go home and say, Mom, did you know the Bible says this and this and this and this? And Mom, one day she looked at me and said, that's fine, Wynn, but there's a difference between what is true and what you believe to be true. Wait, what? That blew me up. I didn't even know what to do with that. But what I did was get more curious and talk to more people about what they believed and did some research about other religions, all of that, just sort of making a compilation of what felt right for me, for my own spiritual self. Well, fast forward, it was like 14, 15 at that time. The next school I went to was a Catholic school. And fortunately, during their religion class, I get to have a study hall, but I would listen to what they were saying and what the beliefs were and still trying to put it all together. Chronologically, what happens after that? Not a whole lot until I get into my early 20s, I think. I was working and there was a young man. Yeah, I had a crush on him. Anyway, he started talking about how there is a fabric that connects us all in the world, in the universe. Now, I hadn't seen Star Wars yet, so I didn't know that that's where he got all that. At any rate, it made good sense to me. After that, I found a church. I'd moved to California by then, and the church's name was Agape. You may have heard it if you live in the Los Angeles area. Michael Beckwith is the minister there. And it was the closest thing I'd ever found to what I actually believe in. The Church of Religious Science is not Scientology. It is a faith that was discovered started by a man named Ernest Holmes. And I like it because it's very human and all encompassing. He talks about God as an it, a he, a she, all those different kinds of things that don't compartmentalize what I've found to be very restricting in other religions. He gave me the freedom to sort of figure it out for myself. So I stayed with that organization for many years. And I left that church not because I didn't believe in the spirit of what they were offering. I didn't believe in the business of religion. And then they moved to a mega church, and that ain't me. I don't do that. However, I keep books and articles about the Church of Religious Science. And they call it Science of Mind. And it's important. It's an important part of who I am and my work, because as a psychotherapist, I believe in the mind, body, spirit connection. I think everyone is connected to something greater than just flesh, even if that means you're agnostic or atheist. To me, there's something else. You can call it whatever you want to call it, because I think that there is a connection that happens with people when you are involved in conversation, and sometimes conversation without words. I'm happy to say that some years later, many years, in my early 20s, my mom did find her faith, and that was very exciting. She really connected with the Episcopal Church, and I was just so glad. And glad because we had a connection in that way then. I didn't feel a connection with her when she said she was agnostic, mostly because I didn't know what it was. But it didn't flow with my worldview. So here we are, 2025. Spirituality is still a huge part of my life. I just don't talk about it. And this feels very exposing, talking about it now. But I want to, because I want to bring my authentic self to this podcast. And once I get over the fact that people are going to believe what they're going to believe, they don't have to believe what I believe. It's the dialogue that's important. I want to hear what you believe. What is your journey? Did you grow up in a church? Did you grow up in a church and decided, no, this isn't for me? What's your story? Let me know in the comments. If you have a mind to, go ahead and subscribe. No pressure. Just remember, sister's got to eat. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. As always, keep creating your own vision. Be curious about your life and find the funny every day when you need it bad. See you next time.